Welcome to Backchecking the Bolts. I'm Jason Linkus, and I'm joined by the managing editor of Raw Charge, Justin Godfrey. Backchecking the Bolts is your cup of coffee to get the latest on the Tampa Bay Lightning. We're breaking down the Lightning's most recent games, and we go beyond the highlights, telling you what the box scores didn't. Backchecking the Bolts will give you tactical breakdowns, player impact, and we're always looking forward as the Bolts vie for their fourth Stanley Cup. It's time to drop the puck. It's Monday, February 1st, and welcome back to Backchecking the Bolts. From 58 miles away from where Punxsutawney Phil said there would be 6 more weeks of winter, in North Huntington, Pennsylvania, I'm your host, Jason Linkus, and as always, I'm joined by the managing editor of Raw Charge, who's getting ready to welcome the Toronto Blue Jays to town in Dunedin, Florida. It's Justin Godfrey. Justin, what's going on?
Not much, sir. Just coming off of the high that was that Stadium Series game. I'm enjoying a little downtime before the Lightning take the ice again tomorrow. So, yeah, just having a great day.
Considering the highs and lows of that game, honestly, Tuesday's going to seem a little bit boring. You had the outdoor game. You had the huge comeback. I think the Bolts are going to have to find a way to get motivated for this one. This is a natural letdown spot.
It is. Not only that, but you also have the Olympic break looming with so many of their players going on. I mean, you're probably looking at them looking forward a little bit, possibly overlooking these next 2 games. So it is going to take some focus. It's something that the Lightning have been really good at doing this year is concentrating on each game as they take it. So it's going to be another one of these day-by-day games, and hopefully they can come out strong against Buffalo.
Well, 2 of the Bolts who are Olympians made pretty big headlines in the game on Sunday night. Victor Hedman returned, and Anthony Cirelli got a little bit dinged up. We'll be talking about those later. But before we go to that and before we go to the recap, what was the atmosphere like in Tampa leading up to this one?
It was pretty good. A lot of folks were, when they announced this over a year ago, I believe last February 1st, which is right around they announced it, it was 75 degrees in Tampa. So a lot of folks kind of poo-pooed the idea of an outdoor game in Florida. As things drew near, as with all the stadium classics, the closer you get, the more excited folks get. You get the announcement of the date, the announcement of the opponent. It was really nice that it was a divisional opponent. It is a team that travels really well in Boston, especially this time of year. So you did have a ton of Bruins fans in the city, hoping for a little bit warmer weather than they actually got. But it was still a break as to what they were experiencing in Massachusetts. And then, you have the uniforms revealed, builds up the excitement. The Lightning, on such a great stretch as it is, kind of just really led into it. 64,000 plus fans in the stadium. You had people going over there 12:30 in the afternoon to start everything. So it had that tailgate feel to it. Really excited. And then the production itself was excellent. Everything about it, they really nailed it. They hit on all cylinders. So it was just a great event.
What did you think about the sweaters? I liked the Lightning's colors. I didn't like the TBL in front, me personally.
That seems to be the overwhelming theme to things. In person, they do look a lot better. Just the script on that TBL just kind of felt added on at the end. I think your number one thought among a lot of fans is that shoulder patch that they had of the skull with the Lightning scar in the forehead probably should have been the logo for the crest on the jersey, but yeah, the color schemes were great. I like the colors, a little bit different shade of blue, so it looked good. The script, their reasoning behind it is it was kind of an homage to the outdoor sweaters they wore in Nashville. Kind of had that same look to it. It is what it is. It's a third jersey. You can probably buy them half off now, so you'll start seeing them in the stands. But yeah.
I actually like Boston sweaters. I thought those were a good-looking sweater. The only thing I don't like, and you see it with Nashville, you see it with the Pittsburgh Penguins now, they go to the solid gold look, gold pants, gold sweater. I like the two-tone a little bit. I wish they would have gone with the black pants, but hey, I'm not. The one thing we know is I'm not a fashion consultant by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I don't think either one of us are going to be making our picks on the runway anytime soon. And, it is kind of an issue with some of these teams like Boston and Pittsburgh, the Rangers, Chicago, where you start getting into your 6th or 7th outdoor game, it's kind of hard to come up with something different. Kudos for trying. I thought it was okay. Probably could have put a better effort in. Honestly, both teams I think could have put better effort in. My vote from the beginning was that the Lightning would come out to some sort of creamsicle color, just for fun, just leading into the whole playing in a football stadium. You know, it was kind of cool to see them come out wearing the Bucks' old creamsicle jerseys, so that was fun. Yeah, overall, you know, the uniforms are what they are. The hats looked great. Like the accessories, the hats and the T-shirts all look fine. So, like I said, once they started hitting the sales, I'll probably pick some of that stuff up.
Hey, why not get it half off when it's a month old?
Exactly.
Well, I guess now it's time to recap the Stadium Series game at Raymond James Stadium. The last time these two teams met was on October 13th. The Bolts were 4-3 winners, and this one would have a lot more offense. 64,000 packed the home of the Bucks on Sunday night for the Atlantic Division tilt, as once again the Bolts hosted the Boston Bruins, and this game just had a little bit of everything. First of all, game time temperature, 42 degrees. And for our friends north of the border, it's a touch over 5 degrees Celsius. And that's in Tampa. It also had the fastest goal ever scored in an outdoor game, a goalie fight, a game-winning goal waved off, and the largest comeback ever in an outdoor game. The scoring started fast and furious. Before the fans could even get settled, Brandon Hagel scored 11 seconds into the game with a wrister from 25 feet out, his 26th from Radish and Kucherov, and Tampa had a quick 1-0 lead. And for all you outdoor fan historians out there, this was the quickest goal ever in an outdoor game, quicker than Colby Armstrong's goal 21 seconds into the inaugural Winter Classic in 2008. But for the Bolts, that was the highlight of the first, because after that it was all Boston. They would outshoot Tampa 20-8, and Alex Stevies beat Vasilevsky with a one-timer at the 11:24 mark to tie the game at 1. Morgan Geekie would get his first of 2 on the night on a great deflection off a Jonathan Asperat innocent shot to make it 2-1, and Victor Arvidsson would also deflect home a goal late in the first on the power play, deflecting a Charlie McAvoy shot, and before you knew it, it was 3-1 Boston after 1. The Bees would keep the momentum in the first half of the second period. Matthew Portress netted his first of the season, a pretty nice backhander over the shoulder of Vasilevsky just 2 minutes in, and Geekie second at 8:18 of the second, finishing a 2-on-1 from a David Pasternak feed. Next thing you know, Boston is up 5-1 and in full command. But the Bolts were able to regroup, in a large part due to the Bruins' parade to the penalty box. Oliver Bjorkstrand started the comeback, roofing a loose puck past goaltender Jeremy Swayman to make it 5-2. A little over 5 minutes later, on a 5-on-3 power play, Darren Radish just absolutely blasted a one-timer from 45 feet away. It was 5-3, and the Bolts were within striking distance. And that 5-3 lead didn't last long, because only 23 seconds later, still on the 5-on-3, Nick Paul tapped in a Gensel pass, and just like that, it was 5-4. As lopsided as the shots were in the first, Tampa absolutely dominated in the second, outshooting Boston 22-9. The third period, though, would calm down. First of all, there was only one goal, but Boston stayed back and tried to suffocate the Bolts' offensive attack, and they were successful until Nikita Kucherov one-timed a slapper from the top circle with 8:10 left in the game to tie the game at 5. We would head to overtime, where once again Boston would spend the majority of time in the sin bin. Tampa would throw 9 shots at Swayman in overtime, but he stopped them all, and next thing you know, we're heading to a shootout. After a scoreless 2 rounds, Jake Gensel would beat Swayman over the glove to give Tampa a 1-0 lead in the shootout, and it was up to Pasternak. And he's one of the best scorers in the league. He made a great move on Vasilevsky, but he put his forehander off of the post, and Tampa was able to leave Raymond James Stadium with the victory. Their 4-goal comeback would be the largest ever in an outdoor game. The win padded Tampa, their lead in the Atlantic Division, to 4 points. They now have 74 overall. Boston would pick up the charity point. They're in the top spot in the wild card in the Eastern Conference with 68 points. If you haven't caught your breath, it's time to do it. Now let's talk to Raw Charge's Justin Godfrey. And Justin, let's look beyond the box score. What a game. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, it's honestly, I went into the game, didn't really have much expectations. I don't want to say I didn't care about the outcome, but I just think the whole pageantry of the outdoor, the way the Lightning pulled it off, that's what I was looking for. Just enjoyed the spectacle. They get off to the quick start. Everything's rocking and rolling. The crowd is into it. And then they just fell apart, honestly, in that first period. Everything went wrong. You get so far behind, you're like, well, time to turn the game off, maybe. Probably the only people in Tampa that were happy were those that bet the over, but
well, you're saying there was a few?
There were a couple that may have bet that over and were finding their condolences in that. But then the Lightning just worked their way back. You had the goalie fight, which it's the first in outdoor history. It was Vasilevsky's first in his career. That kind of turned the tide a little bit. The Lightning were picking up the physicality. Boston gets frustrated. They do the one thing you just can't do when you got a 5-1 lead. They just started taking those penalties. The first one, it was a penalty. Borkstrand scores on that power play goal. Great. It's 5-2. This is really where I think the game kind of turned. If it's 5-2, nothing after that, Boston can probably still cruise. But Kastelic takes that bad penalty, and it was a horrible penalty. He hits Bjorkstrand right, after the goal is scored. It kind of gives him a little cross check. Things escalate from there. Jake Gensel comes flying in with a punch because, he's the little guy who could. He's been taken on, I think it's the second guy he's taken on who's like 6'4" or bigger. Starts that little melee. Kastelic's the only one who gets the penalty called against him, puts the Lightning back on the power play. In the end, technically Boston killed that penalty off, but it was also during that scrum where the whole fracas broke out. Brandon Hagel's digging at a puck underneath Swayman's pads, and the puck is loose. If you watch the replays, the puck does come loose. Jeremy, a little bit of a hothead, I think, from time to time, takes umbrage to it, throws his blocker, throws a nice punch with his blocker right on Hagel. That touches off the big melee. Out comes Vasilevsky. The two square off. Penalties all offset, but the Lightning, that momentum's really building right there. Now they're kind of feeling it. A couple of minutes go by. Then the really bad penalties start. Swayman puck comes out to him. It hits his stick, and he just bats it over his shoulder, over the glass. Lightning are right back on the power play. Right off a face-off a few seconds later, Tanner Jeannot knocks Gensel down, interference. Boston can complain about the fact that they took 7 penalties or 7 penalties were called against them, but those, you can't do that stuff. And those are obvious penalties. The refs have to call them. So now it's a 5-on-3. The Lightning are feeling it. They're getting a lot of shots, but they're not scoring. It looked like maybe Boston was going to kind of survive. And then Sean Curley closes his hand on the puck, tries to push it away. It gets caught. It extends that 5-on-3. And as that happened, really felt like Boston was rattled at that point. Charlie McAvoy screaming at their refs. He felt he was tripped a little bit before that play. And then right off the face-off, Radish bangs home the one-timer. Now you're 5-3. Nick Paul scores, makes it 5-4. 23 seconds later, something like that. And I think all the momentum is gone for Boston. And now that they're kind of on their back foot, they can't recover. A lot of times you see this with teams that have big leads that they blow it. They just can't put it back into gear afterwards. And pretty much from that point on, Tampa dictated the play of the game. So those 2 penalties really just back to back really threw Boston off. They're their most penalized team coming into the game. They lose their composure. They give up those power play goals. And then it's, the Lightning. It's all the Lightning from there on out.
So we're going to play Larry Merchant here. And for those who don't remember Larry Merchant, if you watch boxing on HBO in the 80s when boxing used to be free, they would go to Larry Merchant, who was the color commentator, and then Howard Lederer. Was it Howard Lederer?
Howard Lederer, yeah.
Yeah, he would give the score. Justin, you can play Howard Lederer. I'm going to be Larry Merchant. So, Howard, how do you score the fight between Vasilevsky and Swayman?
I give it 10-9 to Vasilevsky. He landed a couple of those lefts that nobody really expected. Everyone thought he was a traditional boxer, but he's unorthodox. He's a southpaw. He starts swinging. He catches Swayman early. Swayman does fight back. I give it on points, 10-9. Vasilevsky with the win. Back to you, Jim.
That was a pretty good impromptu impression there, Justin.
The good old days. HBO after boxing after dark.
You got it. Hey, so you had the goalie fight. You listed the turning point. But in this game, Victor Hedman returned. Now, a little bit different for the lineup. They went with 7 defensemen. Do you think early on that had any impact in the game?
Not really. It was something Cooper was asked about that after the game. He did mention it was a plan that they had in place. They had talked to Victor Hedman about it. They were not going to rush him back and have him play 25 minutes in his first game back. He's basically played 2 games, I think maybe 2.5 games over the last 3 months. So the plan was always to take it slow. Cooper's done this before where he's gone 11-7, especially with the defenseman coming back from ill health. So it was really kind of get Hedman back on the ice, get his legs under him, let him start going again. He played 10 minutes and 18 seconds, pretty much all of it on 5-on-5. There was about 13 seconds on the power play during that run of power plays where he was on the ice actually with Darren Radish at the same time. He didn't kill any penalties. Overall, I thought he played pretty well. He was on the ice for one of the goals against, but it wasn't really his fault. He had done his job and took the guy along the boards, but the pass came through. I thought Hedman looked better. He definitely looked more comfortable as the game went on. You didn't see him in overtime either. So Cooper was really protecting him in this first game back. I do believe they're going to kind of ease it into it a little bit. I expect him against Buffalo to see a little bit more ice time. But at this point, I don't think you can see him on the first power play. I mean, with the way Radish is playing, that spot's his. So they're going to be able to take their time with Hedman. Their main goal is getting him ready for the Olympics. As much as a factor as he is for their team, these next 2 games, I think it's going to be more warm up for him getting ready for Sweden. If he plays well in the Olympics, then he can roll when they come back.
On Tuesday, they host Buffalo. Do you expect Cooper to go with the same kind of arrangement, 11 forward, 7 defensemen?
I could. You could see that again, especially if Anthony Cirelli, who took that big hit in the game, is a question mark. I wouldn't be surprised to see them go 11-7 again, protect him again a little bit, let him roll out there. The 6 defensemen that are also on the ice have been playing pretty well. It seems to be working for him. I wouldn't be surprised another 11-7 day.
Now, as I mentioned in the recap, the Bolts outshot Boston by 9 shots in overtime. But Boston actually scored what looked like it was the game-winning goal, but in a weird play, and I think the officials are more to blame on this than anything, the one official had his arm up and let the play go, but no one blew the whistle until probably about a second before Pasternak's shot. And he was on a 2-on-1. He beat Vasilevsky. But, Justin, I want to get your in-depth opinion on that play because there's a lot of moving parts. Tell everyone what happened and really why the goal was disallowed. We all know why, but there was a penalty before, but why wasn't the whistle blown?
It's hard to say why it wasn't blown. You do hear the whistle before Pasternak crosses the blue line. You hear a whistle, I should say, and it sounds like it's blown a couple times. Coach Cooper said they heard it on the bench. It was delayed. It was definitely delayed. The penalty took place. Lightning were coming down on a 2-on-1, and player gets hooked. One of the things I noticed right away was that Kucherov really gave up on the play. Right away. I mean,
he stopped dead in his tracks.
Skating. Now, the thing is with Kucherov, that doesn't always quite mean it's a penalty. He does sometimes get into his own head, and if something doesn't work, to say he sulks would be a little bit strong, but he's definitely expressive when he's upset on the ice. So if he thought the 2-on-1 where he would have had a prime scoring chance was disrupted or somebody made a play, it's understandable that he may have just thrown his hands up in despair. But there is an angle where you see kind of behind Vasilevsky almost on ice level. They showed it in the replays once. As the play's coming back towards the Lightning zone, the trailing ref is blowing. You can see he's blowing his whistle. And it's up to his lips. This is well before Pasternak comes in. I can get why Boston fans, especially those in the stadium, might be a little bit upset. It was hard to hear. Cooper mentioned it after the game. He's like, we knew there was a penalty coming, and he actually thought a frustrated Boston team just shot the puck in the net after the play was dead. So he was kind of surprised at the reaction. Hagel was on there. Hagel was kind of funny after the game. He looks up. He's like, dang, I got to take on a 2-on-1 here. And his comment was, as you can see, it wasn't very good because the puck went in. But he was like, I saw Cooch give up. I saw the other guy give up. So I thought there must have been a penalty. So, yeah, I think it's just one of those, if that happens in a regular indoor stadium, they probably hear the whistle. Was it late? Yes. Do we know why it was late? No. I mean, it should have definitely been blown with the puck still in the Boston zone. Yeah, so it was a pretty interesting ending to the game because the Lightning had actually pretty much dominated that overtime. They got a couple power plays on it, and I know Kucherov put one off the post, off the crossbar. For a guy who let in 5 goals, Swayman actually played pretty well down the stretch after the power play bonanza for the Lightning. So it was a cool ending. Just kind of capped off what was a wildly entertaining game. That's all I can say.
Well, after the game, we learned that Anthony Cirelli is right now day-to-day. 1, give us the latest, and 2, Cirelli is going to be an Olympian. He's going to play on Team Canada. Do you think there's a chance he doesn't make it over to Italy?
There's always a possibility. I didn't get the feeling that Cooper was too worried about it after the game. He referred to it as a stinger. He definitely acknowledged that Cirelli was shaken up a little bit on the play, wasn't expecting the hit. So with that type of hit, you kind of worry about upper body. Maybe, something just felt off after the game. Cirelli's gone through this a few times this year where he's missed the end of the games. There was one just a couple games ago. I believe it was the Chicago game where he took a shot off the foot, didn't finish the game, but was back for the next one. Just the way he plays, he's always going to be one of these guys that gets beat up a little bit. One of the interesting things that came out of it is, for the, 35 seconds where there was 5-on-5 play in that period, Cooper actually put Hagel and Kucherov on a line with Jake Gensel as their center. It's something you don't really see too often with him centering. Part of it was the fact that he had started 11-7, so he was down to 10 forwards. And with them trying to, come back from a big deficit, he wanted his best players out there. But, Gensel went out there. The line played pretty well as a trio. They posted an 8-2 edge in shots when they were on the ice. Gensel went 7 for 13 on faceoffs, so maybe they're going to convert him into a center at some point if this happens. Yeah, you kind of worry with Point already being out. How does it affect the Lightning for the next 2 games, which are 2 big games against divisional opponents? And then, if you're Team Canada, Coop's got to coach them as well. That's 2 centers he's out. Probably Cirelli's probably his most reliable guy. He's going to be used a lot more than people think in Canada, especially if the Canadians are chasing or trying to protect a lead, I should say. You're going to see a lot of Anthony Cirelli out there wearing the maple leaf if he's healthy to go.
First of all, when Gensel was coming up through the Penguins organization, he did play some center, and even in his rookie year, when he struggled a little bit later on in the first cup run in 2016, he did play a little at center. It wasn't a lot, just a little bit. Second thought is John Cooper going to bring that suit to Italy? Because, I tell you, they're going to think he's a mobster if he wears that thing. That was a beaut.
It was, all I could think of when I saw him come out was that man has got to be cold. You mentioned it was 42 degrees. It's a damp 42 degrees down here. And if you've never kind of gone to different climates, I lived out in Salt Lake City for a little bit. A dry 42 degrees is a lot different than a humid, damp 42 degrees. And that's what it was in Tampa. It was actually down in the 30s earlier in the day. He had made a comment after the practice session that the weather might change his costume choice. He stuck with it. He paid homage to kind of the past of Ybor City, as he said afterwards. Him and his coaching staff do love going out to Ybor, enjoying a nice hand-rolled cigar. They smoked a couple coming off of the ice after the game, and that was his homage to the good old days of Ybor City, Tampa, the Cuban flair that the city's built on, and he definitely had his best Tony Montana look to him. So,
well, we've done boxing impressions and given fashion advice. Now let's take a look at the standings in the Atlantic. With the Bolts winning 3 in a row, they now have a 4-point lead over the Detroit Red Wings with 3 games in hand. They've played 53 games. They have 74 points. The Wings, 56 games. They have 70 points, and 1 point behind are the Montreal Canadiens. In the Metro, it's the Carolina Hurricanes with the same number of points as the Lightning, 74. But once again, the Bolts have 2 games in hand, so right now they're in the driver's seat for the top spot in the Eastern Conference. The Penguins are in second with 67. The Islanders are in third with 65. But those all-important wild card spots right now are both owned by 2 Atlantic Division teams, the Boston Bruins, who the Bolts just faced with 68 points, and the Buffalo Sabers, who are coming into town next with 67. Justin, you and I talked about it real quick. This could be a letdown spot on Tuesday night at home facing the Buffalo Sabers. The one saving grace could be the fact that Buffalo is in Florida right now. We're recording this on Monday night. They are tied through 2 periods at 3, so they're going to have a tough game in Florida. This is going to be a tough back-to-back for Buffalo.
It is. The Lightning have kind of caught a couple teams on back-to-backs this year with them playing in Florida the night before. It definitely helps them out a lot. The big motivator, it's going to be the Lightning trying to get motivated to play this game. You know, we talked about it. It could be a little bit of a letdown here. You had all the pomp and circumstance that led up to the Stadium Series. You had the big long point streak as well. And now you're kind of in a gap where a lot of players are probably looking forward to the Olympics. It's going to be up to the Lightning to go ahead and find a way to get motivated for this game. They've done a great job of it this year. I've written about on Raw Charge a few times about schedule games, trap games, and for the most part, they've really pushed through. I think the one letdown that we had this year was the Columbus game. We talked about it. Me and you talked about it. It was just not a great schedule for them where they were coming off the game in Chicago through a storm on the end of a long road trip. That's kind of the one time this year where the Lightning really haven't matched the energy that they needed to win a game. So I expect them to come out. Cooper's great at getting these guys motivated. They're a veteran team that knows what they have to do, and they've really done a good job this year of just going out there, taking care of their business, and moving on to the next game. So I do expect that. Buffalo's still kind of a young team coming up, learning how to win in this league. They're going to have a big test against the Lightning, and the Lightning should be able to find a way to pull this out and help create some distance in that Atlantic division there.
Now, they play Buffalo Tuesday. On Thursday, they host the Florida Panthers, and then it's the Olympic break. Do we see Johansson at all, or is it going to be Vasilevsky these next 2 games?
I feel like he's going to let Vasilevsky roll. You know, Vasi's going to get the full break of the Olympics. So right now, really no need to get Johansson going. I do think Coop knows how important these next 4 points are, so he's going to put the best team out there. Johansson's been fine as a backup, but if you get a chance to start Vasi, who's riding a pretty long point streak as it is, then you got to go with him. And those games against Florida are always battles. It's going to be a tough one, no matter how Florida's playing or how the Lightning are playing. It's going to be a tough game. They're going to take each other on. So it's going to be fun to watch. Probably another game where you're going to see a bunch of penalties. Could be a Curtis Douglas special. He hasn't played in quite a while, so wouldn't be surprised to see him back in the lineup so he can take the fighting duties away from Vasilevsky and have a little fun out there. So,
as we know, Justin is the managing editor over at Raw Charge. You can find him on www.rawcharge.com. Justin, what do you have going on over at Raw Charge?
Not too much. Heading into the break, probably going to finally get around to wrapping up the January numbers for the Lightning, do a little preview of February coming up. Pretty light schedule, but it could still be a pretty important schedule. And then during the Olympic break, we'll find some time to break down some of the stuff that's happened over the first half of the season. Take a look in at the Syracuse Crunch, are having a pretty good season of their own down in the AHL. So we'll have some stuff up there. Keep an eye on it. Yeah, just www.rawcharge.com. Subscribe if you like, or just read. Who cares? It's all good.
Our next podcast will be later this week when we break down this week's games against the Buffalo Sabers and Florida Panthers. We're also going to be putting on some podcasts during the Olympic break. We might help you with your next Lightning road trip. Justin and I have taken a few. We've been up to Calgary and Edmonton. We've done the California swing a few years back. And we want to give you some tips on seeing the league. I've been to every NHL city. Justin's been to almost all of them. So anytime you have a question, feel free to reach out to Justin on Blue Sky. Feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at Linkus25. Well, the horn is blown. The off-ice officials are telling us to get off the ice. It's just our way to say that's today's episode. Thank you for listening. If you like the podcast, we would appreciate it if you rated us and reviewed us. You can find us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and on Apple Podcasts. For Justin Godfrey, I'm Jason Linkus. Have a great week and go Bolts.